So welcome to making an ammo display. In this video we'll be doing exactly that, and by the end of it we'll have a little ammo display up there, number 3, and when we cannot fire anymore our crosshair or reticule will go grey. So I'll see you in there. Hello and welcome back. So let's just take a look at what we're going to be doing. We want a ammo display, but just before we start, notice that neither of those AI tanks are currently aiming at me, yet as I drive a little bit closer the guy on the left starts aiming. Then hopefully the guy on the right starts aiming. There we go. So what could that be? What's the most likely reason they're not aiming at me at this stage? Well, if you think about it, I seem to be just outside a radius, don't I? One starts aiming and then the other. Well, the problem, of course, is that the velocity that they can fire at is not high enough. I'm going to increase the launch speed to 8,000 or 80 meters a second or nearly 200 miles an hour. Over on the tank aiming component, the tank blueprint. Now, when we start the game, we should find they both aim at us because they have an aiming solution and we are basically in range. Perfect. All right, so we want a piece of display text. Why don't we make the display text first? Create the pane, hey? Just for fun. So what I mean by that is create a problem to solve. The problem will be we have no way of updating the display text, but at least we'll have the display text. So let's grab the text, drop it onto our UI, make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to use 96 font. It's a bit leery. Let's try 72. Okay, that's fine. There's no border around it, so it doesn't really matter how I align the text in there at this stage, at least. But I think centered may be better. Now, I'm just going to put a default number in of 3 or even XX like that, just so I can help see what's going on in terms of alignment. And then what I want to do is think very quickly with any new item about what the anchor point is. And in the case of this piece of text, we want it anchored to probably the top right of the screen would make sense. So let's compile and just have a look at that. If we play, then it's a fixed distance from the top right of this viewport. But remember that we are currently playing in the selected viewport. You see when you say play mode, selected viewport. So if we play now, it's still anchored to the top right. So that's cool. If you want to see what it would be like in a standalone instance, you can go to this drop down up here near the play button and say standalone game. If you do that, it'll ask you to save everything, no harm in that, and it'll open a whole new process and play the game in a nice 16:9 window or however we got our game configured, and then it'll show you that the ammo display works there too. Cool, so the ammo display is anchored to the top right. Now what we're going to need is a getter. So under the content section of the text box that we've put in, we want to go ahead and create a binding from that, and we get some blueprint. All right, cool. So look, I've done enough. I want you to do the rest of this. So I'm going to give you a challenge. Make an ammo display. Get an ammo display working, basically. We want it counting down. It should count down each time you fire. As a bonus, make the crosshair go grey when you're completely out of ammo. And a tip for you, if you do add a new enum state, for example, out of ammo, you're going to need to restart the editor in the current version of Unreal in order for that enum state to show in your blueprint because of a bug. Okay, pause the video, see if you can get ammo display working in its entirety now. Hey, welcome back. So in order for this to work, we're going to need to go ahead and open a couple of files, of course, and it's mainly going to be the tank aiming component. And let's look at the tank aiming component header file. So I'm going to make myself an out of ammo enum state while I'm there because, well, we want to keep track of that. I'm also at the bottom of the tank aiming component.h going to make an integer rounds left, and I'm going to make a default of 3. So we start with 3 rounds unless we're told anything else. Now we're going to need a getter, so don't make it public. Make yourself an integer get rounds left. Doesn't need any parameters. Const method like that, so that any class can ask the aiming component how many rounds it's got left. That seems perfectly reasonable to me. I'm going to create a definition using Visual Studio's tool. A definition of the symbol get round left. Okay, well, it's not going to work, so I'll just go do it myself. Not a problem. I'll put it under tick, I think. So it's going to be int, the class name, colon, get rounds left, const to match the signature, and then we're just going to return rounds left. Very simple. Okay, let's just compile this. We want to stay close to compilation. i.e. close to a game that is ready to compile. And then we have ourselves a rounds left variable, but we're going to need to expose this guy to Blueprint, aren't we? Otherwise, we're not going to be able to read it. Here in the player UI, where I went over to the designer and bound this, created a binding, what happened is in the graph here, it created a whole new event graph called getText0. Well, let's give that a more meaningful name. Over on the My Blueprint tab, let's rename it to getRoundsLeft or something like that. So it's a bit more meaningful. And what we're going to want here is we're going to want to be able to get the BP aiming component reference. And from this, we're going to want to be able to get rounds left. We can't right now. Why not? Well, because this is not a U property. And in fact, it's going to be the same U property as fire. So I'll just use that one there. It's going to be a blueprint callable firing category, get rounds left. Okay. So that's cool. Let's go ahead and compile our code. And then we will have here in the graph, specifically the get rounds left event graph of the player UI blueprint, we will have the ability to call get rounds left on the player UI blueprint reference that we have. Once we get that, we need to take the value, and what do we do with it? We're going to turn it into a string. Once it's a string, you'll notice that this is one color, and this text here is slightly different. They've made them a similar color, which is cool, but they're not exactly the same. One is an internationalizable, or as they call it, a localizable text, and this is a string. But it turns out if you drag the two together, it'll put the required localizable text or string to localizable text node in for you. So that's pretty cool. So there's your blueprint like that. You can line these up all day, and there are various tools to distribute and line these things up if you care about that. Alignment, align, set middle like that, or whatever, however you like it. But the point is that's the logic. So that is now getting the rounds left. Let's see if it is. Let's play the game, not in standalone. I'm going to go back to the viewport just because I can see it. There you go, XX. Now, it's not working. Why not? Get rounds left. Let's compile it, because it's not compiling. So it's saying that we have an invalid option reloading in select. And we have an error here. Okay, this error probably is because we have changed, or I changed, the enum. And this enum is not up to date with the enum that I changed. So let me try just deleting this guy. Yeah, that's probably my best bet. And coming off and going select. No, I still not got the fourth enum state. So this is the bug I was telling you about. Let's close Unreal altogether. Now, something's linked to, I just want to make sure I'm not going to lose anything. It's the player UI blueprint. That's okay. We don't mind losing a bit of that because that's what we're working on anyway. So I'm not going to save the player UI blueprint. This is a bug in Unreal. It's known about at the moment. And I did say that you need to restart the editor if you are going to be able to get that new enum state. So back into the player UI blueprint. Let's see what we lost in terms of the graph. All of it, okay. But at least here in this section, we still now have a 4-element enum, okay? So sorry about the bug on Unreal's behalf, but that's what it is. You do need to restart to fix it. So I'm going to get rid of that comment. Now notice, on out of ammo, we can actually directly set the color. So I'm going to set it to gray. Now, I wonder if that would work a bit darker. I wonder if that would work on the others. Well, I think it would. If we break this link, then you'll see that locked is defaulting to black. I can go to the previous green, select the hex color, put it in here. And why am I doing this? Just because it's simpler. We're reducing the number of nodes. Break the link, get the hex color, do that. Final one, get the hex color, and off we go. Now, I do want to thank the student that mentioned this on the forum, by the way. We can get rid of these nodes. I don't remember the student's name, but we can always go and have a look. No harm in seeing our community forums. So you can do searches in here. I think it's cleaner. I think that was a word that I remember in it. Cleaner color selection node. And yeah, Jonas J. Thank you very much for showing that that's possible. Shows that if you do contribute in the forum that I do listen and build it into later videos. So there you go. We now have the colors directly in there. Much neater, much tidier, much happier Ben. Hopefully much happier students. And that's that. Now, of course, it lost all of our other stuff that we did, didn't it? So if we go to the designer, it lost all of this binding information. So let's just do that again. We recreate the binding. We go get our aiming component reference. We drag off it. We go and get the rounds left. Like so. We turn it to a string. And sometimes you just have to redo your work with a smile and not worry about it. Try not to swear, try not to curse, try not to get into any sort of victim mentality about it. It happens to all of us. If you want to use a powerful tool like this that's cutting edge and constantly changing, we'll have some problems with it sometimes. Just deal with it. Try not to get stressed. Just smile and carry on. If you get stressed and angry about it, it's only you that it's going to affect at the end of the day. Ultimately, it's not going to hurt. You might want to report a bug, you might want to do something proactive, but please don't fill yourself up with stress. All right, so that's done. I've recreated that. I've saved everything. Let's go back and see if it works. 3. Now I'm going to fire. 3. Okay, good. So this is exactly what I expect, is that it doesn't count down yet. Why not? Because when we fire in the tank aiming component, we need to say rounds left minus minus, which is a shortcut for rounds left, equals rounds left minus 1. Let's just check that that change worked, but I'm pretty confident it will do. And while that compiles as a check, let's think about when we want to fire. Do we only want to be able to fire when we're reloading? Well, let's look at the states. Here they are. No, we want to be able to fire when we are aiming or locked. What we were saying is fire when we're not reloading. But now that means fire when we're aiming, locked, or out of ammo. And we don't want a bit of fire when we're out of ammo. We only want aiming and locked. So I'm going to change the logic round completely. Did this compile? Yes. I'm going to change the logic round completely to fire if the e-firing state is locked for the AI tanks, or the e-firing state is aiming so that we can fire if we want to before we get locked. Does that make sense? So we can now fire in locked or aiming. Very explicit. It's positive rather than negative. I prefer that. Just going to back indent there. So let's have a look. We should now only be able to fire at the right time, basically. Apart from, we never set the out of ammo state, do we? We have this out of ammo state. It never gets set. Well, when will we be setting states? We're setting them here in the tick component. So it's all very well that we decrement right now, 3, 2, etc. But we're going to go below 0 if we're not careful. So what we want to do is put another if statement at the top. Now be careful. If you're putting another if at the top of an if, remember to put your else first. Now we can come in and put the new condition. If rounds left is less than or equal to 0. Why less than or equal to? Just in case we ever ended up in negative rounds. How would we handle the case of being negative rounds? Well, we would still, if we had negative rounds, be in a firing state of out of ammo for sure, right? You could just say equals and put an ensure statement up here to make sure you never go negative, but it's not that consequential if we go negative at the moment, so this will do. Okay, cool. So every tick we're setting out of ammo. If we're not out of ammo, then we're reloading. If we have, if it's been too little time since we last fired. If we're not reloading and the barrel's moving, then we're aiming, otherwise we're locked. So that's the logic of it. Let's see if this works. Should work for both of us is what I'm hoping now, because the architecture we have means us and the AI tanks all have to follow the same rules. So if I Alt-P to play when I'm here, in a nice full screen, and I'm going to fire as I go down the hill. I have 2 rounds. I have a red reticule, goes amber. I can fire again. I have 1 round. It goes amber. I fire again. It goes grey. I cannot fire anymore. That's good. Now let's just check that the AI tanks also run out of ammo and don't cause any problems. And I think that they've both had all their rounds. So I'm feeling very safe now, apart from I've flipped. Really need to sort that issue out. I think that's a self-collision issue, by the way, and we'll fix it shortly. Okay, seems to be working. Seems to be working absolutely fine. Maybe we have an ensure that's just gone off, though. I did see... Yeah, we had a projectile blueprint ensure fire off. I'm not sure why in this case. I don't see any reason why we would have had something not be able to find a projectile. Let's just check the tank aiming component has its projectile blueprint. Okay, I'm going to put that down to a 1-off, but I'm going to keep an eye on that if that happens again. I don't see any fundamental reason why that should have happened. So, okay, fantastic. We now have much better aiming, so I will see you in the next video.